10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Drag racing fans, what's going on here? It is Tuesday night, so that only means one thing. Myself, the Slammin Sam, we are ready for the Competition Plus Power Hour. But no, I am not alone, and yes, I'm ready to go. I've got my buddy, my brother from another mother, Lee. Switch it, because we're on the wrong sides already.
Yes, we'll definitely have people chiming in about that if we do not get it right. So hopefully it is right now, and it will change slowly, momentarily for me, as my computer on this in the showroom seems to be slower than it has been in recent times. So is it right,
Lee,
Sam? Has it switched?
No, it's not right.
Okay. Hang on. All right.
Jeez. Oh, there we go. Boom.
Boom.
Okay, Lee,
great.
Are you ready to go?
Let's do it.
I'm excited, man. I'm excited. It's a Tuesday night. A lot of drag racing happened this weekend. PDRA, NHRA, Mile High, Virginia. People switching classes.
We got two great guests. Joey Haas, who had a spectacular Sunday that many would not expect, but frankly, I was not shocked to hear of his success. I think Terry Totten has been due. Briefly, I'll say that. And then we've got Tracy, one of Competition Plus's own, later on, will be on the show. And he's a writer for Competition Plus and has even a family connection to the Mile High National. So looking forward to that.
Hey, do you think he'll have a juicy story of Bobby Bennett? That's the real question here. Like, let's be honest.
Right. And I believe he will. I don't know. I have no insider knowledge, but I believe he will.
So, again, thanks to all you guys that are chiming in the comment section. Don't forget, we love to hear from you guys. You guys can email us at the one and only place, and that is powerhourcp@gmail.com. powerhourcp@gmail.com. No matter where you are in the world, email us your questions for the Pit Insider, who will be coming on again tonight, giving us that juicy information. Have spoken with Bobby, so the people that I said will get a t-shirt, I still have your comments and what you said and your sizes. You guys that email me back, so we will get those out to you. But Lee, we got a packed full show tonight. You and I said we're going to try something new. Do you want to explain to everybody what we're going to try and do? New, switch up the show, give it a better flow a little bit, or do you want me to dive into that?
Dive in.
So guys and girls out there, what we're going to do is usually Lee and I try to yak it up the first, few minutes, first 15 minutes of the show. But we feel like we're not giving you guys our full opinion on things. So a little bit of what we're going to do here is give you guys that hot, brief information about what's going on, what's on our mind, dive into the show, get our guest on, get a full 30, 45 minutes with each guest, get our pit insider who brings us that great knowledge. But then at the end of the show, we still want to have that interactive time with you guys and come in and talk about the different things that you guys see, even ask more questions for the guests of, things that you guys thought. So don't leave right away at the end of the show. We're going to try and bring you that different flavor, wrap up some ideas we have, maybe give you picks or ideas going into our next week's show, kind of give you an idea of what we're going to run down and different things like that.
Sounds good to me, Sam. And to Randall G commenting, what's Jeff's favorite beer besides Coors Light? I think Jeff would probably have the response of, is there beer beyond Coors Light?
No, he's a Canadian guy, so he probably likes something with maple syrup or something. I mean, we know how those Canadians are. They like their stuff with maple syrup. I don't even know what a real Canadian beer would be, to be honest.
Canadian Wilson, Labatt Blue.
Nasty beer, nasty. I'm just saying. Yes. So who knows? But I mean, to you guys out there, what'd you think of the Mile High Nationals being on Denver? If you were there, let us know. Lee and I were not there, but someone said Moosehead. I don't know if that's a real Canadian beer or not, but hey, I'm not from Canada. Live very close there. But Lee, pick one topic. Let's dive into one thing. I've got something that you and I talked about, especially with kind of what's going on with the trend of what people are talking about right now. So I don't know if you want to dive into that or save that for the end of the show.
Let's wade on in, man. Let's wade into the water.
All right. So this is my thing. Right now, we have drag racing is very male dominant, right? We all know that. But I would like to see a woman in each class, in each category across the board. Like right now, you look at Top Fuel, you got Brittany, when you got Leah. And Leah's a very high topic to talk about. You go down to Funny Car, you have Alexis DeJoria. You go down to Pro Stock, you have Erica. But who do we have in Pro Mod right now? In the bike class, we have Angel, we have Angie Smith. In Top Alcohol, you have the Myers crew that's really strong in that.
Yes,
so
Sam, honestly, with Top Alcohol, it might not be male dominated. You got to throw that in there. It might be completely flipped, actually.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I'm like, you got the Myers, both Myers girls were in that. You have Jasmine, who did phenomenal here this weekend. You have Julia Natas. I'm trying to think of, those are, the top few that stand out. But like I said, I would like to see, and this is a strong prediction right here, I'm going to say it. Pro Mod needs Melanie Salemi in NHRA Pro Mod as our woman driver, period. Like, I know that I don't know. I think she would be a good force to come into the NHRA Pro Mod and say, you know what, I'm going to be the female of this class.
That would be great to see. Melanie is a great character. Enjoy talking with her and her crew, and they've always been inviting, and they're great competitors. They do got to figure some things out in PDRA competition currently, but they did recently win I believe it's the Rumble Wars at Norwalk at Summit Motorsports Park. Also, look, not for nothing, the NHRA might need to figure out how do we get Lizzie Musey to come in a Pro Mod and race and pull that, no prep Kings type of crowd and that following as big as it is with her into the Pro Mod ranks. Someone needs to be on the phone. Maybe they have. Maybe it just hasn't been worked out, but I think they need to work that out.
And Lee, see, I like what you did there when you said bring that following. And that's something that our special guest tonight that we're going to bring in very quickly here soon, he is doing with, this article that is pretty much a shot around the world. If you didn't pay attention to what happened in drag racing and drag racing media today, you should be, because this picture here that we're going to bring on this gentleman is exactly what we're talking about with connecting these two, with connecting motorsports, with connecting any type of thing. So I'm going to pull up this picture, add this person on, talk to him for a few minutes, but here you go. This was a shot that was heard around the world today with adding people of drag racing and motorsports. I think this was, like they said, a match made in motorsports. So without further ado, we have Mr. Drag Illustrated Wes Buck. Thanks for popping on to be our special guest. But making these connections, how do we continue to do it? Oh.
Yeah, look. Right there, Melanie on the cover of Drag.
He called it. This guy's a Monday Morning Racer's like a lap ahead. He's a lap ahead of the rest of us. But hey, thank you for the introduction. Thank you guys, both Bobby Bennett and the whole team at Competition Plus, Tracy Renck, everybody, both you two, Sam. Appreciate it a bunch, dude. And I appreciate the kind words. You made a fantastic point about borrowing some of those fans and leveraging some of these people's different audiences and their followings. And we certainly tried to pull that off this month with Drag Illustrated, the 169th issue of Drag Illustrated magazine, our annual State of Drag issue featuring as you mentioned, Leah Pruitt and Tony Stewart on the cover. It's a cool story. I hope everybody recognizes that while we do pride ourselves in being a human interest magazine, this is no sort of love story. We certainly touch on the subject. Nate Van Wagenen, our editor-in-chief, did an incredible job on this interview. Spent, I believe, a couple of hours on the phone with these two, a Zoom call, matter of fact, looking them in the face. And it's an incredible read, but it's more, I believe the story and the content of the article, or excuse me, the entire issue of the magazine really is more about taking the temperature, proverbially, taking the proverbial temperature of the sport of drag racing, identifying some trends, what's hot, what things are working, and the overall direction of the sport. But really, really cool moment for us.
And so I guess my first question is, when you look at this and you look at what's going on and you connecting these two, I think it's been talked about across the board here with drag racing, with motorsports. How do we connect, NHRA fans to World of Outlaw fans, sprint car fans, to no prep fans? How do we continue to do this? But I think what you did there is, hit it across the board with having Tony Stewart being able to share drag racing onto his platforms.
It's an interesting conversation because it's tough to bridge the gap sometimes between stick and ball sports, football, baseball, basketball, hockey, etc. It's difficult sometimes to bring those folks over to the sport of drag racing. This is a niche within a niche within a niche, basically, right? It's a sport within a sport, and then a certain style of a motorsport. So it takes a special type, but we felt that, to your point, Sam, NASCAR racing, IndyCar racing, circle track racing, that's not quite as far of a leap. It's not as far to jump across to try to connect those dots. So we looked at it as an opportunity to not only tell an incredible story. I mean, let's be honest, no matter where you lie on these things, it's a big deal. It's a big deal to have someone like Tony Stewart hanging out at the drag races. Whether he ends up racing, whether he ends up racing Top Fuel or doing something else, I don't care. His presence alone, he has nearly 1 million followers on Facebook alone. He is an iconic driver, a NASCAR champion, an IndyCar champion, one of these guys that has really built a persona. Smoke. I mean, he doesn't even have a photo of himself as his profile photo on Facebook. He just has his logo, Smoke, right? He has an iconic look. He's done all these things that we preach, on the internet, your shows such as yourselves, the Competition Plus Power Hour, all over Drag Illustrated. We beg for our racing brethren and our racers to put on the show, to embrace a persona, to let it all hang out. And Tony Stewart's made a career out of that. So to have someone like that on the cover of the magazine alongside Leah Pruitt, who I believe to be amongst, if not the most visible drag racer of all time, it's a fantastic thing. I think it bodes well for both of them, to be honest. But these are the type of exercises, I think the marketing slang that people would like to use is cross-pollination, right? Bring a little bit of them over here and a little bit of them over there. And this felt, no pun intended with the cover text there, but a match made in heaven for us. So we're very excited about it to expose. For us, it's more about putting the audience that Tony Stewart maintains, the fan following that he maintains, the sponsor interest that he maintains. Our focus is putting the eyeballs that he brings with him on the other stories inside Drag Illustrated. It was a great kind of double-edged sword for us, an incredible opportunity to not only tell a story that needs told, but also leverage Tony's incredible following, Leah's incredible following, to bring attention and focus and eyeballs to racers of all walks of life, which we've been celebrating on the pages of this magazine for over 15 years.
And like you're saying, and as we dive into, I guess, talking more, leaning towards more of what our show is geared toward tonight, when you look at, Denver and what it means to you, you've had a couple of races there, you've seen what the Bandimere family has done for our sport. How did you feel, I guess both, this is a question to you, Lee, how did you guys feel seeing the car count? What do you think we as fans, I mean, that place was packed, but as media people and the NHRA and racers, what can we do to make Bandimere a a powerhouse like it should be. More cars, the car counts being what it should be. And now I'll lean that towards you, Lee, first, and then after that, Wes.
I don't know what it's going to take to get over the stigma of it being a challenging place to go to. It is it's not far from a metropolitan area from what I understand. So it should help on that, it being Denver, Colorado, but it has, earned this mystique. I understand it's hard on parts, but this is a major national event. Major things have happened at the Mile High Nationals. And major things, like I think back, it seemed like Bob Glidden always in the 80s, like the Mile High, he would turn it on and he'd go on those late championship runs. And why not this place being a place that if you've won there, you can win anywhere? That should be the idea. For example, you don't see NASCAR teams not showing up to Darlington because it's too tough to tame. No, they want to race there. And they want to win there because if you can win at Darlington, you can win at just about anywhere. That should be the mystique around the Mile High Nationals, and not, it's too hard, therefore we're not going to go. Now, on car count, I will say this. I think it does have to be balanced. And it has to be balanced with, are we progressing? Are we regressing? What is happening in the sport? There was a time when an 8-car field at a national event was not unheard of, even though you had many showing up to qualify for that 8-car field. So maybe 8-car fields aren't that bad of a thing. And I proposed this on the Going Bracket Racing channel a couple weeks ago. I would love to hear I'd love to see the NHRA experiment with door slammer only events. Like, why not have Pro Mod and Pro Stock headline a NHRA national type of event without Nitro, and vice versa? I think that'd be interesting to see.
That's great. And Doug says something here. Doug Winters, who was actually there, 28-hour drive back to North Carolina with no race on the way back. So that hurts too. But Wes, how do you feel about it? To wrap this up with, bringing you on, how do you feel about this?
Again, thanks for having me, you guys. I know that you're really doing us a solid here, helping us shine a light on the 169th issue of Drag Illustrated. Thank you very, very, very much. Of course, if you want to check out the issue, the cover story with Leah Pruitt and Tony Stewart, log on to dragillustrated.com and you can read the whole magazine for free. But we got Monday Morning Racer kind of threw me a curveball there at the end. There's a lot of conversations to have. I'm all for door slammer only events. I think I've demonstrated that here over the course of time. So that's definitely an interesting conversation. But I think what I come back to is that I completely respect exactly what Monday Morning Racer is saying. This is a track and a venue that needs to, I wish this was something that was a little bit more widely embraced, the challenge of it, having success there. But here's the issue, and especially when you make the comparison to NASCAR, because I actually had this conversation earlier this week, or actually over the weekend, just this kind of reminds me of the NASCAR teams not skipping Darlington as much as maybe skipping the road course races, right? Skipping the races that don't fit their program or that they don't feel they can excel at. But here's the big elephant in the room. It probably pays $40 million to D&Q at a NASCAR race. In the case of Pro Mod, if we're talking specifically, you had to go to the final round. You had to be the last 2 cars there to get a single dollar, and you had to pay to enter, on top of driving, as Doug Winters is talking about in the comments here, 28 hours across the country to race in a very, very, very challenging environment. So I certainly understand and support the belief that racers should embrace this challenge. Racers should be there. But I'll tell you one really good way to get racers to show up on Thunder Mountain. It's pay them $100,000 to win, and then don't force them to pay any sort of entry fee. However, I can attest to the fact that it's still a tremendous challenge, even with that type of situation. But I really think this comes back to the NHRA finding a way to make it not necessarily make sense. I don't think we're at a time and a place where anyone's going to be able to swoop in and just automatically make it make sense to run a professional drag racing team, be it Top Fuel, Funny Car, or Pro Mod, Pro Stock, or anywhere in between. But I do think that if in this case of an event like the Mile High Nationals, which Sam, to your point a minute ago, tip of the cap to Sporty Bandimere, John Bandimere, the entire Bandimere crew, Larry Crisp, Cale Crisp, Cody Crisp. That's an incredible group of people. Kevin Rowe, that track and that facility, what it means for our sport cannot be overstated. The job that they do is incredible. And they showed us why. I mean, it was an amazing sight to see all those fans. I joke, but like my heart grew 6 sizes seeing all those fans piled into Bandimere Speedway to watch a drag race. But I do agree with you, Monday Morning Racer, Sam. I think they deserve to see a bigger show. I would never use the word better show because I believe without a shadow of a doubt that you can have one hell of a drag race with 2 cars. That's all it takes to have a drag race, and a great one at that. But incredible show out there, incredible value, all those things. But I do think that an event like that should have full fields across the board, especially in those professional categories. And I think it's on the NHRA to make it worth it to these racers to make that 28-hour drive and make those changes, buy those head gaskets, buy the camshafts, buy the cylinder heads, the torque converters, gear sets, everything else it takes to go race and be successful on Thunder Mountain. Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
yeah,
man.
Thank you, Wes, for coming in, and congratulations on the new cover and telling those stories. And we look forward to talking with you guys soon.
Thank you, guys. Don't stop doing this. We appreciate it. The entire sport of drag racing appreciates it. This is the type of stuff our sport's needing and lacking very badly. So please keep it up. We appreciate you guys and we love you. Thank you.
Thank you. But yes, so I think that was great, Lee. Like you said, we got to talk about that. And moving into that, I think there's a lot to talk about here. Once we take this break and bring in our pit insider, he's got some good information for us to talk about and to dive into the Mile High craziness that kind of happened.
Right. Ultimately, to segue in, we're talking about things that for many years, drag racing has been like the redheaded stepchild of motorsports. And we are talking about what needs to happen, like a domino effect, even beginning now, to get to the point where if you don't qualify, you still get money. And right now it's not at that point. So maybe one day it can happen. You never know. Other people have made those moves in other motorsports, and they are seeing that type of success, even with start and park type of rides, maybe one day in drag racing. Let's take a break, and we're going to bring Jeff Arend on.
The jeweler.
Yeah. What's up, guys?
Oh, nothing much, man. Just another day on a Tuesday here talking drag racing. So you got to see things firsthand there on the mountain. What was it like?
Let me tell you, I've been obviously going to races with the Dumps the last year or so, and then before then gone to a lot of races. And Denver, it was like the good old days. I mean, that place was packed Friday, Saturday, Sunday, beautiful weather, great racing. I don't think I've seen a crowd at any racetrack in the last few years that was as big as that crowd was for 3 days straight. Obviously the Bandimeres, they know what they're doing. I off the record, but I'm on the record, of course. I'd like to see Bandimere and Bader buy NHRA or have NHRA hire those two guys, because by far those guys are the best track promoters. They get people there. They take care of them. The restrooms are clean. The food's reasonable. They just do so much for the sport. It's unbelievable. I was listening a little bit, with Wes, with you guys, and, some of the issues with going to Denver. There's only 9 top fuel cars to go to every race. And I think there's only 12 funny cars to go to every race. It might be 13. If you're an independent team, obviously you live or die off that $9,000 you get for going to the track and qualifying. So when the fields are small, you're guaranteed the $9,000. With the rental cars these days and the airfare, and the hotels, that stuff's gone up 2 times probably in the last few years. Denver is a very tough track to go to. I'm not saying it's like you guys were talking about Darlington. I think it's just a different deal. When you go to Darlington, your motor doesn't blow up. You know what I mean? If you miss it by a little bit, you go to Denver. Like let's say blower overdrive is say average throughout the year is like say 38.5 on a funny car. So you're running the blower 38.5% over. You go to Denver, you're running it 50% over. You're running way more compression, way more lead, way more everything. And if it puts a cylinder out, which they do, especially in Denver, because the corrected altitude's between like 8,500 and 9,500 feet, you put a cylinder out, it's going to murder all your stuff. So can you blame the independents for not really wanting to go there? Because it could cost a lot of money to go there. Is there a better way to do it? I don't know. Like, I think maybe there could be. Could there be more incentive? Maybe you pay a little bit more there. One of the things I've learned a little bit, which I wasn't 100% sure of, is that when NHRA comes to your track, the purse, which is like, if you look at the whole purse for an NHRA race, it's like between, I think, $800,000, $1 million, some crazy number. But the track has to split the purse with NHRA. So when you were seeing these tracks not wanting to have a race, it wasn't because they didn't want to have a race. It was because of COVID and some other things or capacity limitations that it couldn't happen. Like they could have a sold out crowd at 40% capacity and almost lose money, and especially if it rained one day. So you can't blame tracks for that. And I think NHRA stepped up a little bit on some of the races, especially last year, to alleviate that pain for the drag race facilities. But there's a lot of things I think that the general public doesn't really know. And, that's definitely one of them. As far as Denver goes, there's been a lot of independent teams that have run well there, gone to the finals. I mean, look at Joey Haas. I mean, he went up there, the Totten team or whatever, and they made a really nice run in the first round, a 398, while not, like a Brittany Porsche 371. They went down the track and they earned their win. And then they had a couple of little lucky breaks there, which you still have to be there to get those lucky breaks. And then the final, they did about all they could do. You're probably not going to outrun Steve Torrance. If he made a mistake, they ran like a low 4, I think, or 413 or whatever it was, or 440, whatever. It was good enough to win if Torrance made a mistake. And, I was kind of watching them a little bit. There were a few teams helping them, but they never took the heads off the car. And I remember like way back in the day when I drove for Paul Smith, we actually made 3 competitive runs at a match race that would have qualified in an NHRA national event and never took the heads off. They had the oil pan off, checking the bearings and everything. But that's kind of cool, like really old school to see that. It was kind of neat to see. Obviously, we had the Alex Lawson story, didn't have a license, and like last minute goes with Scott Palmer and gets licensed, which is not always the easiest thing to do. I've seen guys take years or 10 times to go out to get licensed. So that was a really neat deal to see. There was a lot of cool stories at Denver. Obviously, there was no pro stock there, and I think probably most of the fans knew that there wasn't full fields, but that certainly didn't keep everybody from showing up there.
Right. Overall, Jeff, I'm sure you'd agree with us. We are feeling the effects in drag racing of business decisions made long before us that have compounded to the point that, look, let me use the phrase start and park in NASCAR. They can qualify in their day and make money and slowly over time progress their program to become a better team, because that was a Furniture Row team, which later on has Martin Truex, and they go out and win a championship as a single car team. You can't do that in drag racing right now, it doesn't seem like, until you find a bigger marketing partner to help propel you into that.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. A lot of the independents, of course, don't go to all the races. So, like, TJ Zizzo's a perfect example. He doesn't go to all the races, but when he goes there, his stuff is perfect, and he makes some great runs there. It's, and when you look at these smaller teams, most of the time, the guys working on the teams have jobs. They're not full-time drag racers, like if you're working for Paletta and that's all you do. These are guys that have other jobs, so they come to the shop one night a week and they help put stuff together. And, they're not really getting paid. So it's very tough for the independents to go up there and run. You had mentioned before that, NHRA needs to start paying people that don't qualify, and they actually have done that for a little while. So if you don't make the number 16 spot, they were paying back to number 20 for a while. I know with some of the little changes now at some races, they pay back to 17 or 18, and some of them are 19 to 20. And it's certainly not as much, but it definitely helps alleviate some of the pain if you don't qualify. And, there are certain tracks, we were talking about Epping last week, where it's just far for some people to go just to go to one race. And if you're an independent guy, you're watching your pennies. So you're looking at some races where, sure, it's cool to go to a race where there's not 16 cars or just 16 because you can guarantee that 9,000 and you only have to make one run. But, places like Denver, it's just, if I was an independent guy, I wouldn't be in a big hurry to go there, only because the chance of blowing your motor up or really hurting something or the whole tune-up being different is a very tough deal.
So I guess for you, a final question, especially what Doug Winter said, it's 20-something hours to go back and there's no race in between. Should maybe we put that as a third stop? Should we go, Pomona, that's, farther SoCal, and then go Sonoma, that's Northern Cal, and Oakland, then hit Denver, and then go to, could we switch that up? Maybe it's something that they looked at there. Could that be a way to do it?
Maybe, but I think the independent deal, obviously you have diesel fuel to go somewhere, but just the way you have to run your car in Denver, it's just such a one-off deal that many independent teams just can't afford to make all the changes, or they don't know how to make those changes if they haven't raced there before. It's not as easy as saying, we're just going to put some more blowers, some more timing, blah, blah, blah on it. If you miss your deal there, you're going to blow a motor up, or you're going to maybe kick a rod out or whatever you're going to do, burn a head off it. These are things that would alleviate any kind of money or profit you're going to make after you got your 9,000. So I think it's different than comparing the stock car racing where, one track's different than the other, but the whole thing's so much different in Denver that, if I was an independent guy, I don't think I blame them too much. And there are some big teams that help the independent guys out a little bit with some stuff, but that it's just such a one-off facility with the atmospheric conditions being what they are. It's always between 8,000 and 10,000 feet corrected, and you generally race in like 1,000 to 3,000 feet corrected. You have to make some pretty big moves there. So, I don't know. It's a pretty tough deal. We talked a little bit about John Forrest last week and his injector deal, and I did a little, searching around. From what I heard, it wasn't, some wango tango thing he did that was really crazy. But the funny cars on injectors, the butterflies on them, you're allowed to cut the injector back to almost the bottom of the butterfly. And what that does is, as soon as the butterfly opens a little bit, you get some air. So probably going to get a little bit better reaction time. Motor's going to be a little snappier. And what he had done, I think, is it just radiused the bottom of the injector. And what I had heard, he'd done that for the last couple of years and nobody really noticed. It wasn't like he was gaining a tenth of a second or anything. It was just some little modification they made with a small grinder or whatever they used. So, I don't expect to see their performance change very much. It wasn't like they were doing something crazy where they were gaining, like I said, 500ths or a thousandth of a second or a tenth of a second. The other story I heard a little bit in Denver was that a Top Fuel team who will really remain nameless, but everybody knows who they are, definitely in the countdown deal, championship contending car, may not show up at Pomona. So that's not 100% sure, but if you don't see one team at Pomona, you'll know what I was talking about.
Well, we've already seen that you can be a full-time / part-time team and make the countdown. So you can miss one or two and still make it in the nature of drag racing as it is today. Jeff, thank you for your time, man. We're going to keep rolling on.
Sounds good. Good seeing you guys, and be at Sonoma this week. Have some fun, and the weather's looking awesome for there. So it's going to be nice to be 10 or 15 degrees cooler than Denver and see some sea level air, and I expect to see some really good runs there.
Stellar. Sonoma, wine country, always a good event.
Definitely.
Take care, Jeff.
All right, you two guys. See ya.
All right, Sam. Well, time to bring on our first guest of the night that was regularly scheduled, Joey Haas, who had a great Mile High Nationals there at Bandimere Speedway. And, yeah, looking forward to having him on because I'm not shocked that he had the weekend that he had. Let's take a break and bring him on right after your words.
In the race for quality, there is no finish line. Jerry Bickle Race Cars is a one-stop chassis shop for drag racing performance parts and race components. For over 50 years, Jerry Bickle Race Cars has been an essential part of racers' plans for building world champion race cars. Our parts department is stocked with every part a racer might need. Log on to jerrybickle.com for more information. We build anything with doors. jerrybickle.com.
How's it going?
Man, great. Look, well, thank you. We know you're on vacation. You're taking some time to come on the show. Thank you for doing that. Hope you and the wifey are enjoying. I imagine you're still around Denver, Colorado, enjoying the Rockies.
Yeah, we're out here in Boulder. Went out to dinner and just sightseeing. She'd never seen the mountains or nothing, so I figured I'd come out here and show her. Me and my dad's elk hunted a bunch out here, so we kind of see the sights and the sounds, and we like to be off the beaten path. So we figured we'd come out here and enjoy a little bit. I'm actually just on the sidewalk here, hanging out, and glad to be on.
Man, people going by, you got no clue. This man goes 300 plus miles per hour and was on national television and international television and was in the final rounds, incognito in Boulder.
That's right.
Lee, before you even talk about drag racing, let's talk about this. Did you hear what he said? They go out there to go elk hunting.
I heard that. Yes, elk hunting. Yes.
That's my kind of person. See, and I think that's one thing. We've talked about it here with drag racing and everything else, but the stories behind these drivers, they're not just drivers. They like to go fishing, elk hunting. We could walk 1,000 while we're elk hunting.
Yep.
Can we not?
Right. Walk 1,000 while elk hunting. Also, I want to definitely, while we got you on early and we got folks watching, Joey, plug your business there in Tennessee. You and your wife have a business that basically is a nice kind of country event center. So fill us in.
It's a wedding venue we built on the farm that my wife, she is actually the 5th generation. Her grandparents lived on this farm. We have about 60 acres. It's located northwest of Nashville, Tennessee. It is a wedding venue that is about 7,000 square feet, air conditioned, heated. There's a bride's room, groom's room, everything. It's an awesome facility. We could host about 300 people. She does most of the people stuff. I just kind of stay outside and try to mow the yard and keep everything looking perfect. But it's an awesome place. If you're ever around the Nashville area, let us know. If you want to have a destination wedding, let us know. It's an awesome opportunity. It's kind of flexible to let us be able to race. But it's definitely full. So the schedule of racing in the fall gets tough because that's wedding season and the business comes first to be able to do this. But it's an awesome place. If you're on Facebook, look at the barn at Murphy Farm. There's a lot of pictures online, and it's an awesome place to hold an event of any kind.
No, and that's what it's about, right? You nailed it right on the head there. You hit it right on the head with saying you have to take care of what's important, your household and working to be able to go out racing. And what you guys did there was phenomenal. I mean, I think the story that was heard around the world is they did all of this without taking off the head on this motor. Like, if you want to dive into just that part alone, that seems like the most critical part when you look at the maintenance, round-around maintenance. And you guys did all of this without doing that. So speak on your team and what that was like.
Only Terry Totten in this day and time.
That's right. Yeah, it's amazing. Everybody sees, on NHRA, on TV and stuff, how many changes you have to make to these cars to run at altitude. And for us to take the car that doesn't get ran much in general and to be able to make the changes to go out there to 10,000 feet density altitude, I mean, that's really what the motor sees. And to be able to go out there and make the car run and perform good is amazing. So that just shows you the handle that Terry has on the car. Not taking the heads off is phenomenal. I mean, it's I think it should be the next rule. You should have the same serial number on the block, or the block and the head should be sealed, or whatever the case is. But I won't cause too much drama in the pits. But we went out there, ran that 398 against Alex and Scott Palmer. That's the best guys we could run against. Wish it would have been somebody different, and it would have been us and Palmer in the final. How epic would that story have been? But anyway, we go out there, run 398 at 300. I had just told my mom, I said, don't expect to go out there and go 300 to 305. I said, because it's just different out here. It's completely different. It's hard to make horsepower. And we go out there on the second hit on the car and go 398, 300. And it was like I lied to her. And we come back and we obviously don't have the time to full service it unless it really needed it, and then we have no other options. So we leak the motor down, find the percentage of leak in the cylinder, see if anything's hurt in the heads, the valves, the piston rings, anything, and everything leaked below 20%. I mean, it's amazing the deal that Terry runs, and to be able to run it at that level at 300 miles an hour. I'll be posting a video maybe next day or two. I have a video of the spark plugs after that run, and it's just going to blow everybody's minds away because you could have just put them right back in and ran them again. It's amazing. So it's easier on us crew. We don't have a whole lot of guys to turn around, but I feel like we do have enough. There's a lot of small things we could change on the car to make things a little more efficient. That just comes with time. I mean, it takes everything we have, takes everything Terry and Mark Howard, Scott Fritz, all those guys at the shop. It takes everything they have to get the car there. So now we just got to work on the small details when time presents itself, winter projects and stuff like that.
Well, as I alluded to several times in the show and right before bringing you on, frankly, I wasn't shocked by the weekend that you and Terry Totten had. If you look at the Monday Morning Racer platform, I've talked to you, I've talked to Terry several times. It's no shock to me when Terry pops off a 390 something. I'm like, well, it's just Terry doing what Terry does. He's got it figured out. And you made the show the U.S. Nationals. I mean, your first time out and in that car, and Mike Booker has been in that car, and it has got people licensed, and it has ran well. So y'all put yourselves in the place in which, through preparedness, that you could go out there and win and win and win and go to the final rounds. So take the time, clue everybody in that you're not the typical NHRA rookie. You've been in nitro cars for a long time, and I would dare say cars that are far more challenging to drive, like the pro front engine top fuel guys.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to it. I at the end of the day, I want to be able to drive anything and just be well-rounded. But the speed of the top fuel car is insane. The front engine top fuel car is a little more wild. It's a little more on the edge. It's a little more sketchy. It's just when things go wrong, it could really go wrong. The top fuel car, like I said, there's just nothing that compares to the speed. Nitro funny car is kind of where we started, where we grew up. So I think that will always have my interest more. I just love the way the cars look. They don't handle the best either, but it's just the grassroots of drag racing, and coming from the nostalgia side of things. I like old school hot rods and classic cars anyway, so it all works out.
So going round and round, looking at it, say, okay, you pretty much summed it up, in an interview saying each round was a win for you. But, every time you looked at another round and saying, okay, we're going to do this next round, we got past that one. What was the biggest challenge, do you think, for yourself going into the lane saying, I've got to do this to make sure I give myself the best possibility?
Well, I mean, just the sheer feeling of, I hadn't drove that car since Dallas last year, 393 at 301 against Tony. So I had been out of the car not quite a year, but going on a year. I've been around it. I obviously, any chance I can get them at the track, but just to prove to myself that I could go out there, you always have a bunch of jitters and stuff, and it's a nervous feeling, especially when it takes everything you got to get there and get your family there, get your friends there, your crew there, and for Terry to get the car there. There is a lot riding on you, but to go out there, I haven't been in the car for 8 months, and to go 061 first round, skipped around against Leah just to be able to idle down the track, and then go 070 against Clay. It's a big difference. It's tough after clicking torque wrenches and making turnarounds and going to the next round, but after that first round and we won, I was content with anything that happened anyway. And to be able to go out there and keep going rounds, it was just, didn't really have any time to slow down and let it soak in until after it. And to be able to run Steve was huge.
So Joey, talk to me about Terry Totten himself. Pretty cool dude out there in the NHRA ranks. Can drive those cars himself. Licensed funny car, licensed Top Fuel, and he can tune on them, wrench them. Plumber back at his 9 to 5, we'll say. And I saw some footage because I haven't seen the national broadcast of the event, but I saw some footage. He was waiting on Clay's team to fire up the car, and he's just leaning on the car. It's sitting there idling like, when we doing this? Come on. So talk to me about Terry.
Well, we were obviously ready to party, and I don't know if they were ready to party with us at the time, but that's Terry. I mean, if we had more backing and stuff like that, more funding, Terry's like Tim Wilkerson. He can do it all. And it's clear. You put a car in the trailer in Omaha that's ready to go. All we needed to do was torque the rods and to go out there and make no changes. And for him to go down the track at 405 and we clicked it off early at 250. I mean, what more could you want? It's huge. It shows a lot about Terry. And to have confidence in us and confidence in my guys, because I bring 6 guys to work on the car. And there's a lot of different things and different ways that different people want things done on the motor, whether it's torquing the rods or strapping the car down in the trailer. You've got to learn everybody's way. And everybody does things differently, whether it's Terry or whether it's the next person or whether it's how I load my own car in my own trailer. There's a lot of different ways to learn. So Terry, he's given me the opportunity. I'm forever grateful of it, but he's got a great handle on things. We clearly don't hurt parts very often, and we don't have to take the heads off of it sometimes, and that just makes things better.
And you keep alluding to, not taking those heads off, and I still can't get past that. You said it earlier in the show. Why not make that a rule? I mean, you say you don't want to stir it up a little bit, but how much, I guess, advantage do you think now after doing that in Denver, if NHRA was like, hey, we're going to implement this maybe in 2 races a year, would those be 2 races you guys for sure would show up at?
I mean, it's possible. I mean, the options are endless. I'm sure it would stir a big uproar. But maybe some way we need to take some money out of it. Not saying the corporate sponsors, because that's definitely that gets us by. But let us be able to compete. Anything we can do to get more cars to the track, more small teams funded. You're starting to see a lot more small teams go out there and run, and I think that's what we need to do along the line somewhere. I don't want an ET race. I don't want an index race. I don't want to do stuff like that. I want to run heads up, to go out there, run the cars. But there's got to be an equal playing field to some extent. A couple years ago, they backed off on some of the traction to make things a little more even the playing field up a little bit. So maybe back off of it a little more. Let's everybody in the stands, and I'm just as big a fan as anybody, but you want to see 330, you want to see 340. The next thing you want to go another career best. So it's a fine line. I mean, it's hard to say exactly what would be the best deal. I just like to brag on Terry that we didn't have to take the heads off of it, and the spark plugs look good, and we ran the same set of heads and pretty much the same bearings in the motor, and probably could have ran the same spark plugs. But it's just to brag on Terry and to show how good of a tune-up he's got and how good of a hold he's got on his whole operation.
Joey, I got to ask, with Terry Totten's car, last year you being in it there in Dallas, you had a big wheel stand. Well, not wheel, it stood the front end a good bit. Being in the thinner Mountain Air, did it keep the front end down or did it pick it up higher? Have y'all figured that out yet?
Well, we made a couple changes. One of the things, though, you talk about Terry sitting there with his arms crossed saying, let's get ready to party and let's run. We sat there for a while against Tony in Dallas. And I think we burned an extra gallon or 2 of fuel just sitting there. And that's kind of what caused the front end to come up a lot. Plus, I'm a little lighter, a little smaller of a guy. I don't know much, but we added a couple gallons to the fuel tank. Terry at the time, Gardner had a couple gallons added. So we got a little more weight up there now. We're a little bit overweight, which is good because we was adding extra oil to the motor. Anything we could do to get more weight on the car, we were doing it because we were close, very close. And so now we've got a couple extra gallons of nitro up there to give us some more weight on the front tires and keep that front end down. And it still likes to go out there and hike the front end, but we run a little stiffer chassis than most of the guys. So it's not a slinky car. It's a little bit easier to drive. It's a little stiffer. It don't 60 foot as good, but that's kind of in the tune up just because we don't run it super hard. But it it's just a little stiffer, so it likes to hike the front end a little bit up. It takes great pictures.
Yeah, man, I remember you all trying to pack more ballast in that ballast on the chassis one day. You're like, we ain't got no more room. We've got all we can get in there. What do we do?
I had to eat a big dinner and a big breakfast.
Hey, and so Joey, like, you have this time. If there are any, major sponsors looking, anyone that you can reach other than on your social medias, plug your socials again, and then also say what you would say to anyone that would be listening and why they should, one, support you, and two, why they support NHRA drag racing.
Hey, and Joey, look, plug the Twitter like you just got on it today from what I understand. So, folks, go follow this man.
Yeah, I got to do more self-promotion. I don't feel like I'm that type of person. I'm just a grassroots drag racer that likes to work on the motor and stuff. Never be a rope behind my trailer. Everybody can come sit in the car if they want to. Can look around at the front, the back. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I want to know everything there is to do with the car and be able to work on it and do it efficiently. I want to be the Tim Wilkerson. I want to be Terry Totten that can control everything. So it's a big deal. But I've got to do better on the marketing side of things. Anybody that wants to present themselves to me, or I got to make a million phone calls, and just to get things lined out. I know if we have more funding and more backing, the opportunities are endless, and there's more of this that we can do. All of our guys are volunteer. Like I said, we're just a grassroots drag racers. I don't feel like I'm a cookie cutter driver. There's a lot of personality here, just like Scott Palmer. I think that's why Scott Palmer's a fan favorite. He just he's himself. He's got his own personality. He's around great people. I'm around great people, and great things happen. There'll be a lot of marketing. There'll be a lot of publicity on my end, and the more I can do, the better.
So, Joey, looking toward the rest of the year, NHRA-wise, how many more races does it look like for you possibly?
It's hard to say. In the fall, with our personal business, gets really busy. It's wedding season. Maybe I can talk to the wife and get out of one or two, or get some hired help. But obviously, that comes with more backing and more funding for me to be away. I mean, there's a lot of things, a lot of responsibilities I got to take on myself, and I enjoy racing, but the business comes first. Dallas isn't out of the question. I haven't talked to Terry a whole lot, but at this point, do I go out there for marketing, try to get a decent amount together and make a 3 or 4 or 5 race deal next year for Rookie of the Year? It's possible. I don't know. There's a couple races that we're going to do with our Nitro Funny car, the Nitro Chaos in Eddyville. Me and Dad's put together that car of Old Man Creasy's dual mag Nitro Funny car with a 57 Chevy nostalgia body on it. It's all paint. It's a beautiful car. But that's on the outlaw side of things. That's not on the Camping World side. And we'll match race that in the Midwest some and just keep my skills sharp. There's a lot of screws and knobs to turn on that. And my dad will be in the seat, and I'll try to be outside the car learning what I can. And maybe I'll get in it again. Like I said, I'm not exactly sure. We'll take it as we can. Try to plan the best we can, but some things just happen spur of the moment. We get enough, put together in a plate to go out here and just get it there and not know how we're going to get home, but get it there and be able to race and be able to be part of it.
Oh, looks like we lost him. But I was going to say, and that's what it's all about.
We did lose him. Yeah, we did lose him.
Yeah. Seeing what it's all about and just having these small car teams there. Looks like he's popping back in. But
he's back.
Stepping away from what he's got to do at work, at his business that him and his wife have there. So you guys, if you are planning on having a wedding or any event in the Tennessee area, because why would you not want to go to Tennessee? Go there, support not only your drivers and who they support, but support their locally owned businesses and their small businesses, because it turns around. If you support them, with what they do and their promoters and their sponsorship, it turns back out to getting them back to the track. So I think, again, Joey, plug your business, send us the information. That way we can pin it and post it around for you guys' business there in Tennessee to help promote, get you to more races.
I appreciate it. There's a lot of people that got me here. We were literally selling bags of coffee from Alliance Coffee Company in Illinois. Anything we could do to get here. A&R Restorations. I was born in East Texas in Sulphur Springs, in Emory, Texas. A&R Restorations, a classic restoration shop. You know, they stepped up and helped out. Speedy Drinks with Jordan Ballou in Oklahoma that I Funny Car Chaos with, just wanted to be part of it. So there's opportunities there, big or small, it doesn't matter. Our personal business obviously comes first. We've got to pay the bills at home and be able to go out and race. But I enjoy doing it. I don't plan to quit, and we'll see what it brings.
Joey, man, look, thank you for the time. Congratulations on such a huge day. It was definitely due for Terry Totten. I know you have put a lot of work in. Do not let anyone tell you lucked into it. You earned it, dude. And congratulations to you and the crew.
It's amazing. You know, you got to be prepared to get lucky. My dad always told me, but when opportunity comes by, you got to be prepared to take it and take it and run with it and prepared to get lucky again. I mean, it's just like Torrance having a bye going in, you know, in eliminations and stuff like that. We didn't know where the bye was going to land, so I knew coming out here on the airplane, if we could get past round one, there's a possibility we could get a bye, especially being qualified number 2 on Friday night. I mean, where does it stop? Where does the luck begin? It's hard to say, but another point, there's nothing to describe the words that Torrance had to say in the staging lanes and at the end of the track. I mean, it's amazing what they represent as their group. I know Bobby Lagana well. I know Dom well. Family's everything, and they have the family aspect in their racing organization, and it shows. They're the best out there. They're dominant, and they just they do everything they can to make things perfect. And it's obvious they're the champs.
All right,
No,
Joey, look. Go ahead,
Lee.
All right, I will go ahead.
Lee.
So, look, man, enjoy the rest of the vacation. Have second dessert. If you already haven't had first dessert, you have earned it. And, get back safely and go drag racing again. We'll see you at Nitro Chaos.
I will. Come on by if you need shade or need a drink of water, anything. Come hang out. We got a place for you. I appreciate everything.
Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
May I tell you, Joey Haas, I think everybody ought to have him on the fan list. There's folks out there in the drag racing community like everybody seems to pull for. Joey Haas needs to be one of those guys. So put him on your list, and if you see him entered, root for him. If he's got a T-shirt, go buy a T-shirt. Follow him on Twitter. Follow him on Facebook. Find him. There's even a YouTube channel. Find him. Follow him. Congratulate him. Do it.
No, I agree with you 100%, Lee. And it just speaks, like you said, he still wants to go racing and do all this stuff, but he has to take care of his household stuff, right? I mean, the business comes first, as we're seeing them kind of still down there, he and his wife,
They're watching,
going back and forth. Oh, yeah.
Go get her more dessert. Go get her more dessert.
Exactly. She's, but that's what it takes, is to grind and grind and grind at what you do day in and day out. He said it, they're a small team, and we've been talking about that. And that's what it takes, is the support. But after a performance like this, in a place where everyone says it's so hard to do it, a small team comes out and says, hey, guess what, guys? I'm here to shake things up. And you can say, oh, it's a Cinderella story. Oh, he got lucky because this happened to Leah. It doesn't matter who you are as a competitor. It doesn't matter when you pull into the lanes or what happens. Every racer has a chance of winning that as soon as they pull the car off the trailer. It doesn't matter who you are. Not showing up does not matter. I'm sorry. There's no excuse for not showing up.
That's right. And man,
I tell people this in high school. If you go to class, you're primarily going to get a C for showing up. Hopefully there's no high school students sitting here listening to this right now, but let's be honest, you show up.
Great motivation.
But I'm just saying, just show up.
Right. Look, I can remember.
I know it costs money.
When I was a welding instructor at a high school, I couldn't fail a kid. You just had to show up and sit in the shop, and you technically would pass.
Pause. Paul, they trusted you to teach kids how to weld?
Yes.
Oh, good. I pray for those welders and those welds that they are making right now.
Hey, you are talking to an individual who had 7 years in the workforce as a welder and an associate's degree in welding. So I know a little bit. I mean, I don't classify myself as some of these super welders, but I know a little bit. Sam, before we bring on our next guest, let me say this. Where else in motorsports are you hearing this type of story of an independent team, a guy coming out for his first race of the year, and it might be his only race of the year, in some of the most challenging tuning conditions, doing it different than everybody else, and they go to the final round on, we'll say, international television before the whole world? It's not happening anywhere else. And for all the issues that drag racing has right now, it still has these moments, and it's beautiful.
You didn't give me a chance to answer the question before you answered the question.
That's right.
Not fair. Not fair.
Would you like to introduce our guest?
Man, does he need introducing? I mean, are we taking a break or what? But this guy, I mean, if you read anything on Competition Plus, he's been around the sport. His father's been around the sport. We're going to dive into the back history. Mr. Tracy, he's going to come on, yak it up with us. I've got some he's the senior writer of the platform that we get to talk on. He hasn't done the only thing I have, Lee, and this may stir up some controversy before we go to a break. I'm going to do this. He hasn't wrote a story about us yet. Have you noticed that?
Well, no.
I think this is the time. I think this is our shot, Lee. Just going to stir up the pot, but Lee, go to that commercial, and then we will bring him on.
Competition Plus apparel, from retro to right now, all from the place where you can believe what you read on the internet. Competition Plus apparel. Get it this late in the show, too.
Get your CompetitionPlus.com apparel today. Whether it's our nitro-burning funny car design or the vibrant door slammer design, we have the swag to show you are always in the know. Get yourself a hat, too. And we know not everyone enjoys wearing a mask, but if you must wear one, at least wear a good-looking one. Check out the new CompetitionPlusApparel.com for the latest from the place where you have trusted for your news on the internet for over 2 decades.
Tracy, welcome, man.
Thank you so much. I've watched the show. I've seen the show, but they asked me to be on it, and I was honestly a little bit stunned. I enjoy doing stuff like this, so thanks so much for having me on.
Well, man, look, thank you for watching, and God bless your heart that you have trudged through the 36 episodes of Competition Plus Power Hour with myself and Slammin Sam. And now you're on it. Thank you, man.
Thank you. Yeah,
hopefully we didn't scare you too much.
Oh, no, you guys do a great job. It's always good to promote motorsports. You know how this works. The more stuff you can get out there, the more listeners, and on social platforms and everything else, it helps you guys. It helps motorsports. It helps Bobby Bennett with Competition Plus. It's just a great situation, and I was glad to see Bobby bring you guys on board.
So, Tracy, look, it started as we were going to kind of have you as the insider this week, since you were at Bandimere Speedway at the Mile High Nationals. Mm-hmm. But now it's turned into you being a full-fledged guest. Again, welcome. So talk to me, talk to us, talk to the folks watching. What is your takeaway from the Mile High Nationals? And I'm going to put this spin on it. Beyond Joey Haas and the already well-known stories, what's underneath that we need to know?
Well, the biggest thing about the Mile High Nationals, it levels the playing field for everybody, just because it's 5,800 feet. And honestly, I love the Mile High Nationals. My dad had raced there. I think the first Mile High Nationals we went to, he used to race Top Fuel, Pro Comp and Top Fuel in Division 5, Ed Renck, and he was there in 79. I mean, we were there when they had the little white tower, and then Then in like 88, they took a year off and redesigned it. But the thing about Bandimere Speedway, the altitude is crazy high, but they do a great job of the way they concrete that track. And they used to have real bad, everybody would smoke the tires, and they have a cooling system in that track that's second to none. And it's just an incredible atmosphere. And I mean, you see the great crew chiefs usually shine, like obviously Richard Hogan and Bobby Lagana, and then, you know, Dickie Venables, but it always gives the chance for the underdog, because I mean, crazy things happen there, and things that you never see at other racetracks. And that was once again the case. I mean, you just see guys that normally wouldn't go rounds. Greg Carrillo, you know, he upsets Antron Brown. He almost beat Mike Salinas to get to the semis himself. Joey Haas gets to the final round. It's a crazy atmosphere, and things that you don't see happen there. And to have 24,000 fans Friday, Saturday, and Sunday was a welcome. I mean, just welcome under these COVID conditions we've lived in for like 15, 16 months. And to see that many fans, a packed house at a drag race, was really refreshing.
And you touched on something there that's really, really, really special for the Bandimere, you know, racetrack, is having that cooling system. You know, from your time and your experience being down there, is that something that you think we should see in other racetracks, especially with blowing the tires early? Is that something that's really unique and another added challenge to tuners and the crew chiefs getting off of the starting line?
Well, certainly. I mean, it helps tuners at the Mile High Nationals, because, I mean, if the track's super hot and you're at 5,800 feet, I mean, they were having trouble a few years in a row way back when, of cars just getting down the track. And give the Bandimere family credit. I mean, they invested in that cooling system to have better racing. I mean, if they wanted to be on TV with great racing and not see a burnout, you know, a tire smoking fest every round, that's what they decided to do. And I think it would be great at other tracks, but it comes down to the situation of who wants to invest the money at the track to make it better. I've been to a lot of tracks in NHRA, in the NHRA circuit, and Bandimere Speedway is it's definitely one of my top three. I mean, Las Vegas is beautiful, and that would probably be the nicest track I've been to, but Bandimere would probably be two. And after that, honestly, I don't know what three would be, because they all kind of blend in. But when you have conditions like that and you cool the track down, it just makes, I mean, yeah, altitude levels the playing field, but if you have altitude with the hot track, because it was like 94 degrees on race day Sunday at altitude, I mean, no one would get down the track without that cooling system.
So, Tracy, earlier we had some folks chiming in and putting forth some questions, and we really couldn't get to them. And I'm going to take some of those questions and kind of put them in a ball and put them to you. They were basic questions like, why isn't Hogan and Torrance being counted as some of the greatest of all time? And I think it has to do a lot with perception, one, and Hogan's not just out front. But what are some stories right now in NHRA you think people need to know about, they ought to have heard, but they haven't come to light, they haven't come forward, even though they probably should have?
Well, I mean, Richard Hogan, I mean, he's an outstanding crew chief, and he just doesn't step in the spotlight. That's just not his thing. Bobby Lagana, you know, he wears a Yankee hat, and he's a great crew chief, and you know, they're always, you know, partying at the starting line every time they win. But Bobby, even when they qualified #1 on Friday night, the first thing he told me when I talked to him was, hey, like, we do all these things, and we had the setup from 19, and it was like a template. You know, we came off the trailer and we get #1 qualifying, but you know, Hoagie's he just kept telling me Hoagie's the best. Like, he's the best. And those guys have figured it out. It is unfortunate in some sense because, you know, he's not considered the Austin Coils of the world. And, you know, these guys that have been great crew chiefs forever, and rightfully so, Tim Richards back in the day, who've got their due. But Richard Hogan, I mean, you've got to understand, Steve Torrance has won 45 races in essentially like 4 years. I mean, that's pretty rare territory. I mean, you're talking Tony Schumacher territory when he had Alan Johnson, you know, when they were in their prime. I mean, that's a story that's out there. I think that gets ignored a little bit. The other story, and I love the guy, Aaron Stanfield. If you want to jump on a guy that's, I think, going to be one of the best pro stock drivers moving forward, that kid can drive. He would have won the factory stock showdown at Bandimere had he not had a crazy wheel stand against Leah Pruitt in the semifinals. But, man, he never had opportunity. He kept biding his time. He was getting limited rides. And he got on board with Richard Freeman last year, or actually in 19, ran a limited schedule and then ran last year, and he's third in points. That's, if you want to jump on a guy that's just a great guy, he and his dad, Greg Stanfield, they run an engine shop in Shreveport. That's a great story. Greg Carrillo, I know he races a very limited schedule. He lives in Fort Lupton, which is like an hour and a half from Bandimere Speedway in Colorado. That guy's a fantastic guy. He brings on like Santiago's green chili company based in Colorado to sponsor his cars, but he has Aaron Brooks helping him. And when he comes out, he's fantastic. It's unfortunate now. The underlying story is a lot of these guys just can't run full schedules because of cost. And it was that way before COVID. Now it's even harder, but those are a couple guys I would say keep your eye on. And if you want to cheer for a couple guys, it would be them for sure.
Oh, that's awesome. And, we had Greg on last week, and he was talking about Santiago's and how good the food is and just how he looks forward to racing at Bandimere because of the challenge and kind of the, I guess, unfair but fair advantage he has of that being his home track and what it means to him. And, you talked about Aaron Stanfield and different things like that. But, your background in all of this, you've seen your dad race, I think it was from about the 67 in the 60s to the 80s, you're involved with this, but like one of those stories that stick out to you, what's one of those stories that, you've been a part of and you got to sit down and dive into it and was like, you know what, I'm really glad that my name was associated with this.
Well, it seems like I always get caught up in controversy with Competition Plus, but one of the craziest things that ever happened to me since I joined Bobby's team in 2009 was the U.S. Nationals. I want to say it was 09 in the U.S. Nationals. I believe it was when Robert Height was trying to get in the countdown and he raced John Force in first round and he needed to win. And you guys may remember this. And they felt like many racers and maybe observers thought John took a dive to let Robert get in the countdown. And Cruz Pedregon and Tony Pedregon were smoked. They were fuming. And I remember going down to the pits to talk to Tony, and man, it was like WWE wrestling. They were hot, smoked, accusing people of taking dives, and Tony had driven for John. And those are I don't like to brew up controversy. I really don't. I'm not tabloid journalism, but I've walked into stuff like that. And that was right after I first started with Bobby. Like, it was crazy that this happened and it broke into this story that, accusing guys of taking dives. And that's one that sticks out. Another one sticks out is Cruz Pedregon and some stuff at Brainerd, like in 2013 that happened, that some crew chief mishaps and fighting possibly that took place. And I had to walk through the jungle at Brainerd. I do suggest if you're a drag racing fan, go to Brainerd, Minnesota once. It's actually, I don't know if it's in the United States necessarily what they do. It's like the closest thing to anarchy I was a part of since going to Mardi Gras in like 1995. It was just bizarre, and I had to go to a police report, and it was just wild. It was just, those are the two that stick out, right in the front frame of my mind, is having just craziness happen. It just, and I love being a part of journalism and trying to get the word out there. And like I said, I'm not one to brew controversy. Sometimes it lends itself to it, but those two stories were just bizarro world.
Oh, Lee, we almost made it a complete show, Lee. Yeah. So, yeah. Tracy, I don't know if you have a drink near you. I was waiting for Lee the whole show. Every time, everybody, Lee talks with his mic muted, so we all. So cheers to everyone that's listening right now. Yep. after you mentioned the zoo.
Yeah, the zoo. I don't know if you've been there. Well,
Mm-mm.
I will say one crazy story. So my dad used to race in Brainerd all the time. Like when Division 5, it was a stop in Division 5, and Brainerd's just a weird place. It's kind of like Fargo. Like it's just weird. It's different. I stayed in a hotel.
Hey,
That
now.
it was just
Hey,
different. And
I'm from North Dakota.
Right. And I have friends there. My daughter went to school in Nebraska, and I get it. Like, I don't have any problem, but it's just a different element. So I was trying to get into the track in 13, and I hadn't been there in years. Like, I think the last time I was at Brainerd before that was like 1982 or 3, when like the last year my dad raced Top Fuel up there. So when you go in there, you're supposed to go in like this back way and come around to like the front to get to the tower. And I don't know what directions they gave me, but the next thing I know, I'm driving around and this guy says, "Oh, don't go this way, go through this gate." So I go through this gate, and the next thing I know, I'm driving, I'm like, "Ah, this is all concrete, this is great, this is paved." I'm like, police escort to the tower. And next thing I know, I'm driving in, and I'm like on the top end of the track, and I see cars coming at me, bracket racing. And I'm like, oh man, I think I made the wrong turn. So they had to stop the racing at Brainerd while I pulled my car off to the side of the track and got on the right road. It was funny in a way. It was a little bit scary, but it kind of all fit into Brainerd.
I can't top that, Sam. I haven't had that happen yet. No.
Well, first of all, I'm kind of offended. He said it's kind of like Fargo. I mean, I live in North Dakota.
The accent.
I've seen the movie.
It's the accent. It's not. It's just the accent. Because I work with people that live in Brainerd that I work with now, and it's just the accent. And I don't mind the accent, but it's just different. I mean, everybody has a boat up there. Like, it's just a different vibe. I mean, it is. And I hadn't been there in so long.
Yeah.
It's beautiful country. Like, I wouldn't, and like I said, I would encourage anybody to go to the zoo up there, because it's full-fledged. You want to have, it's like Woodstock for NHRA. And I'd never been a part of it, because when my dad was doing it, I don't even know if they had the zoo. And I don't even know if they didn't have a national event. They didn't get it till after he retired. But like, you go there and it's like, man, it was, this cop was giving me a ride through the zoo, and there was things going on that would have got you arrested in any city in the U.S. that just like par for the course there. So I tell people, like, if you want to go, that's one place to go.
It is.
So I got to say this.
Go ahead.
So the zoo, and Stan makes a great point. From what I've heard, pictures I've seen, especially with people around here, the zoo is very tame compared to the 80s. But then whoever Mopar man is, like I said, I live in North Dakota. I was going to ask you, do I have that accent? I know we say, don't you know, oofta, different things like that. I don't believe I have the North Dakota twang, but I do in some things I say. You mentioned the boats. Minnesota is the place of like 1 million lakes or whatever it is. I mean,
lakes, right?
You have to have a boat, because our summers are so short that it's like the one thing you can do is go get a race car and go get a boat, and you're good to go. So don't knock us North Dakota Minnesotans, but we like to party.
No, I agree. I didn't know you when you said that. I was stunned. I don't hear an accent. I mean, who knows? I'm from Colorado. Maybe I have an accent. I don't notice a lot of accents unless I'm in like Texas or down south, or places where predominantly you'll hear different accents.
Oh yeah, you betcha.
Yeah, it's better than me. I like I said, when I got there, I was staying at like this comfort, might have been a Days Inn. And I mean, in Colorado, everything is so PC, non-smoking. You can't smoke. I mean, whatever. It's pretty much like this around the world now. But at the time, like non-smoking bars, you couldn't, smoke anywhere. All hotels were smoke-free. And right as I roll into Brainerd, I pull into this place, and they're like, "Oh, it's the greeting party, like the welcome reception." I'm like, "All right." And she's like, "Oh, go over there to the right." And there was a big keg sitting in the lounge right as you walked in. There's just cups, and there's like, "Do you want the smoking room or the non-smoking room?" And I'm like, "Wow, where am I? Like the 70s?" Like, it was like just fun. I mean, I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. It was just like, it was like that 70s show. I felt like I was like in a time capsule of like that 70s show, like rolling up in my car from Wisconsin.
the zoo, the Talladega infield, and the Watkins Glen bog, something that all motorsports fans should experience at least once.
And I agree with that. See, and I've never been, I used to do a little bit of working for NASCAR.com, and I used to cover a ton of races at Pikes Peak International Raceway, but we never had the big cup race here, basically because they wouldn't let them build them at Bandimere Speedway like they did with Las Vegas Motor Speedway and Bristol. They wouldn't let them do both because it was too loud. You know, whatever. Like, it was different political agendas that kept them from building both tracks. So I've never been. I always wanted to go to Daytona. I've never been. And I've always wanted to go to Talladega because I've never been. Those are the two on my list at some point in my life I hope I get to go to.
Hey, those are good to have on the list for sure. And Tracy, look, when you write a story, what is your philosophy that goes into writing a story? What's the aim? What is like your core essential aspect to your writing when you put pen to paper, or in this case, hand to keys on a keyboard, that you want to get out and you make sure that's the soul of the story?
Well, just to grab the attention of the readers, to make them want to read it, because there's so much out there on the internet to read, and the attention span is so like 10 to 30 seconds now. So I try to, grab the attention of the readers. But as a journalist, my ultimate goal is just to be fair and try my hardest to get both sides of the story and understand conceptually what I'm writing about and what it means, and understand what I'm writing about. So, I have a good grasp on who I'm writing about and what it means to them and how big this event is. The U.S. Nationals is obviously bigger than the Division 5 race and things like that. And ultimately, it's just the integrity. And I think that's what Bobby does with his website, Competition Plus, is we try to get stories out there that no one else gets. And we try to be fair about it and just be honest and give the audience and the racers audience stuff they want to read. We don't want to be a mouthpiece for anybody. We just want to be as honest as we can be with integrity to get stories out there that you can't read anywhere else.
And that's what I think it's all about, is having those stories that honest stories and stories that you can believe in what you read there on Competition Plus. And even with, this platform, and giving Lee and I the chance to come on and we say yak it up, because, we give not only the facts that we see, the facts that you guys, the guests, bring into us, but we give our personal opinion and our personal flair on it. And I think that's what sets it apart is, it's just kind of, Lee and I refer to it as the Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp of drag racing. You have two guys from different backgrounds, but still have a love for one thing, and that's sports. We agree on a lot, but we disagree on some things. Lee thinks he's right. I think I'm right. And the controversy of going back and forth and then having a guest on gives everyone a different, philosophy and a different view on what motorsports means to us all. But I think
Sam,
we've asked. No.
I will say this. I will say this. With what Bobby and Tracy are doing, it's like on the virtue and truth meter, it's pegged. But when you come to the Competition Plus side with us, like the sketchometer side is almost like pegged. It's getting there. So both flavors.
You're saying it's like when Tracy walked into that Days Inn. And a funny story about living in North Dakota and Minnesota, anything below like a La Quinta Inn is like, you've hit that sketch meter. It's like, okay, I got the Hilton, I've got, the Comfort Inn and Suites, I've got this, I've got the La Quinta. Anything under that, you're like, you're on your own. Like, forewarning for anyone that comes up north, but you're on your own.
Well, when I pulled up to that place, I had a itching feeling that I might be sleeping with my shoes on. It didn't have hourly rates. Didn't have hourly rates on the thing or weekly rates, but I thought, man, I might be sleeping with my shoes on here. This place was a little sketch, but what are you going to do? It's drag racers find a way to make it work, as well as drag racing riders. So it's all part of the game.
But I think we've come to a point at this interview, Lee, and I think you know where I'm headed with this. Is we've been very truthful, very, incisive and uplifting of Bobby Bennett. You've been with Bobby since 2009. So you're at graduated high school. That's
God
over
bless your
11
heart.
years. So over 11 years ago. We need to know. The fans want to know. Do you have any good, juicy stories that you've been waiting to leak to the tabloids about this Mr. Bobby Bennett guy?
And remember, we are the sketch side, so feel free.
I will say, Bobby's a great guy, and we've had stories. If you ask Bobby about Indy, about going to King Rib, we always joke about King Rib. There's a sketchy place in Indy that it never seems to be open, and when it is open, there's only one car there. But we've never gone to King Rib. But the funniest story with Bobby, and Bobby's been fantastic to me, and he's given me the opportunity to write about motorsports, which I have a passion for. The funniest story within Realm, we were at Indy. I want to say it was 19. I think it had to have been 19 because we didn't go there last year. Bobby had a rental car, this nice rental car, and it had a real silent motor. Like it was just, I was like an SUV type motor. So we drive in and we park at Indy right by the tower. Like no big deal. Like we all get out, we all work all day, 12 to 14 hour day. And we get in the car, and when we get in, the car, Bobby looked at the thing, and there was like no gas in his car. Like the tank was full, and the car had been left on. Like it was so loud when we pulled up, and you know how bracket racing is. Like it's just loud, and this car was quiet. The car had been running all night, so running all day and into the night. So it ran out of gas. So. And I did say, if there's any place you want to run out of gas it's at a drag strip, because Bobby knows everybody, and we weren't stuck by any means. We walked like 2 minutes away and got some gas and from one of the guys, and they gave us enough gas to get out of the track. But it was like, it was pretty funny. I mean, it wasn't funny. It was just kind of weird, and you couldn't even hear the car. And Bobby was like, "Man, what happened to my car? There's no gas in it." And I'm like, and he's like, "This car's been running." It was crazy and funny, but Bobby's the first guy to stick up for you. I mean, that's the reason I love working for him, is if you go to bat for him and you're honest and you do what he asks you to do and you follow the stories that he wants you to follow, he's the first guy. Because I've crossed paths with guys, and I've got guys really mad at me at NHRA, like really, really mad at me. And I won't go into specifics, but he was the first guy. I mean, I had guys slobbering at the mouth trying to kill me and threaten me, and over stuff I'd written, which was true, but they weren't happy. And he was the first guy to make calls to defend me and say, is there anything wrong with it? Is it true? And it was true. That's why I appreciate working for Bobby, is he's always had my back. He's always been there for me. And he's just a fun guy to work with because he's honest and he comes through, and he's always been there for me. But yeah, if you ask Bobby about the experience of running out of gas at Indy, we didn't blow up a rental car. It wasn't that exciting, but we ran out of gas at Indy and we weren't even driving.
Well, Sam, that wasn't quite the dirt we were looking for, but we'll take it.
Hey, yeah, man, something's better than nothing.
I gotta stay pretty PC, though. He's my boss.
Well, Tracy, look, my last question for you as we continue to roll on in the Competition Plus Power Hour, smart sanitizer, sanitizing the social media Competition Plus. You all check that kiosk out for your small businesses and large businesses. In telling stories, what stories do you think are going to be told in the future? Is it Steve Torrance having the most championships of any top fuel driver? Is it Erica Enders being a pro stock team owner and transitioning to that and being someone that transcends any female that has been in the sport with that type of role? What do you think is on the horizon that's going to be told?
Well, I think the story that'll be told is Steve Torrance is probably going to end up as the winningest driver in top fuel history, unless someone figures out a way to stop him, because he's a great driver. He has an unbelievable team, and he's got endless resources. And it's kind of like Tony Schumacher was back in the day with Alan Johnson. I mean, it's a train. It's hard to stop. And I think, he's at 45 wins now. I mean, the rate he's going, I mean, the only reason it's even a race right now for points is because of the countdown. I mean, if there was no countdown, he would clinch the championship like probably 12 races into the season. I mean, he's like 300 points ahead now. And that's the story I think that'll be told, is just the domination of Steve Torrence. I mean, the story of John Force has been written, 16-time world champ, legend. Robert Height added to that. Brittany won a world championship. And maybe that, maybe Autumn Height, Robert's daughter, develops. Maybe Antron Brown's son, jumps in the top field ranks. But as I see it now, the big story out there is, I mean, it's kind of like Steve Torrence is kind of like the New England Patriots right now. He's so good that someone's going to have to figure out a way to either have money to burn or resources to bring people in, kind of like El-Anabi did back in the day, to compete against what they have. I mean, because, and I'm not saying it's unfair advantage, because those guys work like crazy and their pits are great. And I mean, they have a good time. And Coletta Motorsports is kind of trying to be in that realm with them. But I don't see any other story out right there right now outside the domination of Steve Torrence.
No, and that's definitely, and I think, just to talk about that, as everyone's talking about the Steve Torrence, that's just a huge thing to talk about right now. Jeff Arend is actually piping in there with a text message that who knows, maybe there's, maybe a future team other than the teams that are out there right now that we should be looking at, or maybe, I guess, proceeding to be available for next year. I won't leak everything he said, but, I think there's just so many stories, and everyone looks at, what's the biggest news right now? And I think Lee does a great job with it on Monday Morning Racer. The stories that you've written, the stuff that I try to cover it's not always the people that are out in front. Our guest Joey, he's a small time team. He's a small operation. We can't forget about those teams, because those are the teams that sometimes are making the biggest impact in the fields and making the biggest impact, on race night and race day, whichever you want to look at. So I think there's just a lot to continue to talk about, and a lot that we can talk about in the sport. And, hopefully, like I joked about earlier, is maybe, the Slammin Sam and the Monday Morning Racer, maybe the headline someday, Lee, of the Competition Plus Power Hour, brought to you by Tracy. Just saying, you never know what could happen in this crazy world of motorsports.
Well, I will bring up one other thing, and I know you guys, I'm sure, touched on it. It'll be interesting to me how long John Force keeps doing what he's doing in the cockpit, because, I mean, he's great at what he's done. He's proved he can be resilient after he lost Ford, and all his sponsorships and Castrol. But, I mean, he's in his 70s, or he's getting close. I mean, at some point, do you keep pushing that envelope until, there's nothing left, or do you walk away at some point and just run the team and, be part of it? I mean, he doesn't have anything to prove. I mean, it's not like he needs to race. That would be another compelling story. And how long does Coletta Motorsports want to be involved with this? Connie's not getting any younger, and he's the one writing the checks. And that's why I hope when you bring things up like that, I hope there's other teams out there, because drag racing needs it. Antron Brown, he might save drag racing. Maybe he brings other people on board a team he runs. I mean, there needs to be other teams that can afford to race and get full car fields and go out and at least be competitive. Because right now, as much as I love drag racing, I mean, at Bandimere and places, when you're having 12, 13, 14 car fields, it's tough. I mean, it makes it harder. And I mean, I understand why. I mean, anybody that understands anything about drag racing, it's never been cheap. And it's surely not cheap now to run. So, I mean, I'd hope that's out there. I mean, you see the fans want it, because 24,000, 75,000 fans were at Bandimere Speedway this weekend. I mean, so obviously there's a need for it. So they need to foster it, develop it, and hopefully get on TV where it's not a time buy to be on TV. They're getting paid millions of dollars to be on TV. That's where the money is. Once you start getting paid to be on TV, you can cover all your other expenses as NHRA and make the NHRA better. But when you're surviving, paying tons of money to buy yourself on TV, it's a tough go. And I've always said, and just like this, I think the best thing NHRA could do, and you guys might not agree, is live stream their races and make them affordable. I mean, because people under 30 now, how many people the age 30 and younger that even have a TV or read a newspaper? Everything they do is through YouTube or on their phone or anything. So, I mean, that's the first thing I would do is find an affordable way for races to be watched, get myself off TV, off a time buy, and get these drivers more exposure until you build up the audience and then get the racers back out there to, get the foundation stronger.
Yeah,
and that
on that,
right
Tracy,
there.
Go ahead, Sam.
I think that right there is what they were trying to do with the app that, Brian told us about. I think that's a way right there. We've
Plex,
talked about it.
right?
Yes, Plex. I think that's a way to increase your payouts right there.
Right.
Get that money back and pay what they should be paid.
Right.
But there's just so much. There's so much that we could talk about.
Right.
And
I
don't know.
Bring up the fact that how many guys do you guys know 30 and younger that watch TV and have cable? Like everybody watches stuff on their phone or they watch YouTube. Tracy, don't.
Yeah, Tracy, look, Sam is 30. I'm 33 in just a week or two. And I rarely watch TV like cable, satellite.
Right.
Matter of fact, I very rarely watch a live NASCAR broadcast. NASCAR, I think, has done something very wise. They put their whole entire race that they were paid for, in fact, to have on TV on YouTube in like 2 days after the broadcast. And it even has a little bit different flair because there's no commercials in it. And they actually go to the live stream of the satellite feed on a car in the caution laps and in pit road and things like that. And I'm able to watch the race on YouTube, and F1 has done interactive things like that. I was impressed to see earlier this year, they've done it 2 times, I believe, but they live streamed qualifying on NHRA YouTube. I think that needs to happen more often.
Right. I agree. I mean, do anything to help save drag racing. I'm not saying it's dying because it'll still be around because there's people with money. There's people with money that want to race. I mean, so it'll survive one way or another, but you want to make it healthy. I mean, you want to have fans, expose fans. So they say, hey, I want to be a part of this. And as you guys know, and I tell friends, like if you've never been to a NHRA national event, you have no idea what you're missing because NHRA and TV is literally boring. And I'm just saying that from a fan. It's like watching hockey. Like you watch hockey on TV, it's like the most boring sport ever. You see it in person. You see it, but you see it in person. Like what those NHL players. I mean, I met Wayne Gretzky one time when I was covering the Colorado Avalanche. Talked to him, one of the highlights of my life when they were doing a practice with the Coyotes, and I talked to everything about him besides hockey. But you watch those guys skate; they're incredible. Like to watch hockey live in person. I mean, it's mind-boggling. Like, and it's same thing. Like and I told my wife, like I was watching Alexis DeJoria warm up Sunday before the race. And I purposely walked as close as I could just to have my eyes watered through nitromethane. And if you don't know what that smell is and that ground shake and just the pure power, like you don't understand like what you're missing, and how much drag racing has to offer.
Right on.
So I got to disagree with you on the hockey thing. Again, I'm a North Dakotan. Hey, that's what this show is built on, a little disagreement. But for me, it's different, right? I ref hockey during the winter. That's kind of like my racing, during the winter. I ref ice hockey. Yes, I do skate. If you don't believe me, come and watch, and you'll see. But, I get what you're saying. Like, people that don't understand. It's like watching, for me, it's watching baseball. I can go to a baseball game because it's fun when you're there. But I agree 100%. When I sit down, and only because I'm a fan, when I sit down and watch the NHRA and FS1, it's because I'm a fan of it and I know what's going on. I want to see. But watching that, it's like, we're going to cut to this. We're going to cut to that. Oh, 10,000 horsepower at night. If it's so cool at night, why do we continue to show it during the day? Right. That's the thing. Like we live on the stigma of header flames but I'm watching it during the day. Like, show me the header flame. That was what was cool about Bandimere. They actually showed that.
See, and that's what I've said all along, and I know drivers have joined in. Some of them agree, and I know Clay Milliken had mentioned it to me at the Mile High Nationals. They should run more races at night, on Saturday night. I mean, man, like, because there's several elements involved, and I know it's a TV issue, once again, but if you live stream and you control the environment, you can run whenever you want. A. B, if you run at night, the tracks are so much cooler, the crowds are so much bigger. Because when you run at night like Bandimere, you ran 8 o'clock qualifying the last 2 days, Friday and Saturday. And then what time are we going to race on Sunday? Oh, 11 a.m. Oh, and it's 95 degrees. And it's like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I get it. But like, it's like the two things we did the day before are literally like just hitting the home run and entertaining the fans. And now we got to swap everything out on race day. And I know it's like that in other places in NASCAR. I'm not naive to it, but in Bandimere, the Mile High Nationals back in the day, John Bandimere wouldn't race on Sunday because of his religious beliefs. I want to say up to like 83 or 84, that race was run on Saturday night. And man, it was incredible. And then they went away from it. And especially with the way COVID is now and they reduced qualifying, have them run on Saturday night race. You can qualify in the afternoon if you thought that was your plight and have them run Saturday night. Shorten it to a 2-day race. I mean, I know it doesn't help fans, but like if you're worried about all the things involved in what's going on in the world today, make it more exciting and run on Saturday night. I mean, that's my take, just because like even when we go to Indy, like the qualifying Friday night is amazing. And then, oh, let's run Saturday morning. And, oh, wow, another guy up in smoke. Like, I mean, it's like you take away what's good for the fans by your own schedule. And I get it on Sunday because it's through TV. But at some point, is TV that important to you that you can't control the environment of the TV you have? I mean, you have your own production with NHRA TV. I mean, run your own show. I mean, I know there's elements involved. I'm not saying what they're doing is wrong. I mean, that's their choice. But to get more fans involved, those are the two things I would do. Number one, I'd live stream more and introduce fans. And number two, I'd run more races on Saturday night.
Drag racing, in particular, the Nitro ranks at night, is the most impressive spectacle that can be viewed in all of motorsports.
I agree with you 100%. There's nothing like it. What's like it?
I'm going to bring these two comments up. I know we've seen them, but Stan makes a great point. Your tablet and your phones are your TV, and YouTube is your cable. I mean, it's true. Like, I get it all the time. People are like, why do you YouTube everything? Because I'm not going to Google it. Like, why not go to YouTube and just click on it, and I can literally watch someone do whatever it is I need to do, play by play as I'm doing it, and I can listen to it. And then you have this right here. Mopar, man, he says, I used to DVR all the national events. Don't do it anymore. Watch the highlights on YouTube. Like, you said it. I mean,
and free live streams. That's the key. Free live streams. Like, you'll get your audience. Like, why pay for something fans want to watch anyway? Like, I mean, I get it. It's just, you have a great product, use it. I mean, it's more. Shaun White was great. Extreme sports are great, and they get Mountain Dew and all these sponsors to be on ESPN. Fabulous. I understand why they're on TV, because that's not a time buy. But you are, and you're just as exciting as extreme sports. What other extreme sport out there is more exciting than drag racing? Maybe bull riding and rodeo on some level, because they're both you have to be a little crazy and want to live on the edge. But it's still there. You have the platform. That's why I get frustrated at times, is because I have so many friends that don't understand drag racing. And it's like, man, if you just would go to a race, smell the nitromethane, and just understand how cool it is. It's just so, in the fan access. And you speak of this about NASCAR, and I don't know what NASCAR is like anymore, because I haven't covered a NASCAR race in quite a while. But like Joey Haas and Steve Palmer, fans and kids are just walking up, going into their car, random guys. I saw a little kid before Steve Torrance came in from qualifying on Friday night. They're like, his mama Kay, they're like, sure, come in, sit in the car real quick, taking pictures, like all this crazy stuff. What other event, what other sport does that? Like, you're lucky if you get in within 100 feet of like Dale Earnhardt Jr. back in the day. Like, there's no way. There's no way. And then drag racing just welcomes them. Like, come in, guys talking to the drivers. I mean, it's such a cool sport. And I mean, I want it to be better, and anything that helps it, I'm all for.
Well, Tracy, look, thank you for coming on tonight, and we do look forward to the article highlighting the story of the Monday Morning Racer and Slammin Sam. Thank you, man, for coming on. It's been a great chat, and we look forward to, having you on again. And
hopefully this isn't my lone appearance. he came on, and I do remember the last time I was on the Power Hour. It was the first time.
I'm sure we will have you on again. As you part, tell folks, what should they be reading on competitionplus.com? What's coming out that they should be reading?
Well, I'm going to have a story about Aaron Stanfield talking about his Willie stand in the factory stock showdown at Bandimere Speedway. I plan to have some stuff on Corey Reed later in the week. The pro stock motorcycle racer, his wife, they just had a little baby, 2 months old. I'm going to dive into that a little bit. Those are the things I have on the horizon, because it's such a quick turnaround with Sonoma. But those are the things coming up, and I know Bobby's working on different things. So please go to competitionplus.com whenever you can and check out the latest and greatest drag racing news we can present to you guys.
Boom. Bobby and Tracy are doing just that with all the truth that you expect in or might not be getting in journalism. But when you come here, you're sketch. Thanks, Tracy.
Hey, I appreciate it, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Man, would you look at that? Let's talk. Let's see. We've got other stuff, but before we dive into our other stuff, he hit it right there, out of the park. I mean, Grant, as they say in San Diego, Slam Diego, because they hit all those grand slams up there. But I'm just saying, man, look at this. Boom. Take it. I know you're thinking, where did that have to come into it? It's just because the Padres are awesome and grand slam. Hit out the park. Anyway, I was trying to tie it together, but it didn't really make sense. You're a Braves fan?
Dude, I've lived in South Carolina, born in Georgia, and now North Carolina. What other fan would I be?
I think we're actually playing you guys tonight, so that's good. I hope Tatis goes for like yards, just bombs. But anyway, we've talked about it, Lee. NHRA's YouTube page should have way more followers than what it has. NHRA, I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, but I'm going to say it because it's my opinion. And as Lee would say, it's just my opinion, so don't judge me for my opinion, okay? Why are we not doing this, yo? Everyone goes over, watches YouTube. They watch Monday Morning Racer. Hopefully, if you guys aren't already, you need to go to Outlaw Performance ENT on YouTube. Hit subscribe. Hit subscribe on Monday Morning Racer and the Competition Plus Power and Competition Plus. Hit subscribe on all those. But go over there. Guess what? The money that you would be paying FS1 to get TV time is the money you'd be making on YouTube if you live stream it, because more people are going to view it. That's exactly what Tracy was saying. That's exactly what we've been saying. Why continue to lose money and we can pay our racers? That means more people will come to our events. More people would be there. More people would show up. Sponsors would want to be a part of it. Sorry. I'm just saying. Lee?
Right. And look, as we began this show, and I mentioned we are dealing with the ripple effect, the ramifications of some type of business decision made years ago, decades ago, more than likely. Well, this is a part of it. The NHRA basically pays to put the program on TV. And yet, like NASCAR, they can go run a race without fans in the stands, as in last year, and they still make money. The track still makes money. So the teams even get a part of it, from what I understand. So we got to figure something out, and I agree. I think live streaming, at least qualifying, live stream it.
My thing, Lee, you want to know why they're doing it? Go look at how many people like NASCAR. Go look at their YouTube subscriptions. This is not learn to play. This ain't pay to play. And that's what we're doing right now.
It's right.
That's ridiculous.
NASCAR, they also will release, just about every week, they will release a remastered old race. And they get views off of that. I mean, It's not that hard. There was a great during COVID. They got Brian Loans together,
Yeah.
Tony Petragon, Jamie Howe. They had Lewis Bloom, and they took John Force's 150th win, and they replayed that entire race, but they gave the behind the scenes look of that day. Man, that was a great program. Why aren't you doing that still? Oh, don't get me started on who is in control of the NHRA thumbnails. They're just pictures. They don't even tell you what the video is. What is going on?
Hey, Lee, let's bring it in. We're not having Mikey. This was a get off my track moment brought to you by Monday Morning Racer and Slammin Sam. We got to remember, we like going to the events. We like covering the event. These are just our opinions. Don't hold them as the words of gospel. But still, let's get on YouTube. I'm just saying. But, Lee, there's other things to talk about, and we're going to do this in the last 10 minutes of this show. Like we said, we're going to transform and yak it up here about a little bit of drag racing. I talked about the women in the sport. Like I said, I believe that Melanie Salemi should be our pro mod driver, or like you said, Lizzie Musey, you brought that one in. I'm not going to say it skipped my mind, but yes, I think those two women are great contenders to be the women of that class. I would like to see, and this is not being sexist or anything, I would just like to see a woman in each class just to say, hey, guess what? We've got this. This is another reason why you guys should continue to support us. That's my first one there. Got a couple of, we talked with Wes at the beginning of the show. Now let's bring up this other controversy. Not really controversy, but what's going to happen? Alex Laughlin driving Top Fuel car. Is this a one event thing? There's been questions asked. I've seen comments. I've heard things with people I've talked to. What is your take on Alex?
My take on Alex is he definitely understands how to take care of the people who have taken care of him. And that's what he is going to do. He's going to take care of his partners like Haviland and Power Built Tools. By the way, powerbuilttools.com or powerbuilt.com, promo code MMR15, you can get 15% off. Go ahead, Sam.
Can I say mine?
Yeah, say yours.
It is MBMS 15, Matt Bro Motorsports 15. It's my other business, Matt Bro Motorsports.
Anyway, his partners, Haviland, Power Built, he's going to take care of them. You got to love to see that. I think that will help him in the future, definitely. And I think the character that is Alex Laughlin, we need that type of individual in the sport. I think you'll see him back in a Top Fuel car later on this year, 1-2 more times, depending on the issues with Pro Mod and Pro Stock itself. I don't think it's a one and done deal. I think you will see it again. Do I think he's ever going to compete a full season in it? No, I don't think that's going to happen.
All right, so I'm going to break a little news that I know. Like I said, it's what I've seen on his own post. It was back in the Pro Stock, obviously back in Sonoma, but wants to go Top Fuel racing full time. From his words, from himself, that he wants to do this full time. So this poses the question, and this is the big question that I have now. So he wants to go. He gives a great deal to his sponsorship, Haviland. You know, the whole crew was out there. The card was wrapped in that. Great marketing person. But what camp does Alex go and make his own team? What team does he come out with? Does Elite add a Top Fuel car to their, to their roster? Does he join AB? He looks up to Antron. He gets information from him. He came out and said it. It was great to run next to a legend like him, a mentor in the sport, giving Antron Brown that credit. Where does Alex Laughlin, if he goes full time, where does he line up?
Well, let's think about a few things here, Sam. Full-time, what does that mean? We would say, that means run every race. But you technically don't have to be full-time right now and make the countdown. Almost, you're looking at a situation, secure your countdown budget and make sure to have 12, 14 races before that. And the odds of you making the countdown, they're good. They're good. And I think it's no different for Alex. You know, you mentioned about possibly getting his own car. He doesn't really have to do that. There's enough cars out there that he could wheel and deal. Anybody can do this, that you could potentially run a car. Look, I work for Doug Foley. Far as I understand from Doug, they're not opposed from a situation where someone else is in the cockpit of that car and it's Foley Lewis Racing, but someone else has brought some money to the table. Terry Haddock does that. That's what Scott Palmer did in this situation. And when you start digging in a lot of these programs, you can find out and go back to where the money is, that someone brought some money to the table. Stan says DSR. I don't think that would be the case. I think rather it'd probably be Antron. I think you're going to eventually see what DSR was, that mega team. It's going to slowly tighten up, and you're going to begin to see, kind of like Dale Worsham mentioned in the interview we had with him at Las Vegas, that you're going to find more 1-car to 2-car teams. But no, Alex doesn't necessarily have to go and get a brand new chassis. There's chassis he could hop into. And in fact, the nature of the way the sport is today, well, you could find your West Coast team, run the West Coast races with them, find your East Coast team, run the East Coast races with them, and you're just moving the sponsor, because sponsors do go with drivers. We've seen that in drag racing. We've seen that in other motorsports.
No, and I agree with you, and I disagree with you there. I mean, I agree with you on the, yes, you can have a West Coast based team, and you can have this, and you can have that. I've actually posed that idea too. And the reason why I asked this question, Lee, is just to spark some more, interest. Like maybe Elites and the Richard Freeman, who knows? I'm not in Richard Freeman's head, and I don't know what they do over at Elite Motorsports, but we've had all these teams that have been the DSRs. We've had all these teams that, been this team or that team. Could we see a possibility of, normally pro stock teams say, hey, guess what? We're going to add something to our stable. I mean, they have pro mod. Why not continue to grow that team? But then we've had people that come on the show and say, you know what? We're sick of seeing these big name teams. Let's dial it down to, have one or two cars in your stable, in your team, and that's it. I mean, it's an unfair advantage when you have 12 cars out there. So, I mean, there's just so much to, talk about and so much to dive into. But that was a big thing for me, was seeing this transpire, saying, okay, now what class what's next for Alex? Okay, he's driven, top alcohol. He's driven pro stock. He's driven pro mod. Now he's driven top fuel. Is he going to go for funny car too? I mean,
well, why don't you keep going in what he's driven?
Go-karts. He's driven. Let's see.
Well, and when we look, let's not just say go-karts. Let's say karts, because he's done it at Daytona, like the high banks, the full road in course. He does that almost every year. He just missed it last year due to COVID. I mean, we're talking, near 100 miles an hour, and your butt's riding the asphalt on, 33 degrees of banking. And tractor pulling. Yeah. I mean, you name it. He's one of the most diverse individuals in motorsports. Motorsports ought to know Alex Laughlin well beyond just drag racing. So honestly, it wouldn't shock me if he hopped in a funny car. Would not shock me at all. Why not? He even said if he had opportunity to be on a bike, he's not opposed to it.
It's crazy.
Maybe he just likes going fast.
And we've talked about this too, and Mikey brings it up. He is one of the few people that have made that transition from NHRA racing to the Radio versus the World stuff. Yeah. He's done some, I think, I wouldn't say quad, but it's like UTV racing I've seen.
Right.
I mean, like you said, he's the most diverse sport person in our NHRA categories. I'm interested to see what the future holds. And like I said, what possibility of a team that he could be on.
I'll say this. I will stir the pot. It is my opinion. It is my own. I think Alex Laughlin is more diverse as a motorsportist than Kyle Larson is.
Ooh. Oh yeah. You just take, like, you know, when someone makes a big old pot of like gumbo and they have that big gauntlet and they just dunk it in there and they're just like, here you go, here's your bowl. Yuli, I mean, every time someone throws out something different, you like to take that pegometer and just bounce it off the wall. So I cannot wait. I hope Wes is still listening to this. I hope Alex hears it. I hope Kyle hears it. You know what? We need Kyle on the show to just hash this one out. I mean,
I talked to Kyle very briefly. I can't say talked. I spoke to him and he spoke briefly to me. He was at the test at ZMAX when Tony Stewart was testing the top fueler. He was walking back from Tony's pits and I was putting stuff in my car. I'm like, hey, Kyle, how's it going, man? Hey, when you going to hop in a Pro Stocker? When you going to hop in a Pro Stocker someday? Because remember, he's sponsored by Hendrick and races for Hendrick. And we got somebody sponsored by Hendrick and Greg Anderson. I want a crossover. I want to see it. And he's like, hey, you never know, maybe someday. Kyle just seems like that kind of laid back, okay, kind of, Southern California, just, hey, cool. I think if Kyle hopped in a Pro Stocker, he would definitely pick it up, and you would see the skill that he has as a driver come out even in drag racing. And I would love to see it. But when you talk about someone that is all, well-rounded in motorsports, people need to be talking about Alex Laughlin. If it's had wheels, he's probably driven it.
So, no pun intended here, but
Sam, I forgot. Endurance scooter racing for Alex.
Oh, he
Laughlin.
did go to the he did go to the track on that bird scooter.
He did, yes.
I would hate to see what the bill was for that, because he went out of the zone and kept it all race and then had to return it back. So I would hate to see what that bill was. But with Kyle on a racetrack, I would be scared he would be trying to put that thing sideways across the finish line. That's all I'm going to say there. Lee, man, what a show tonight. Tracy dropped some great stuff on us.
Yes,
and just yakking it up.
Good to have Joey.
Yakking it up. Yeah, Joey, I mean, that shows a lot about him too. Taking the time out of his vacation to come on and talk a little bit more drag racing, what life is, and what he gets to experience and what he loves to do. Right. So that's what's cool about these people, is that they have life outside of drag racing and they love to talk it. But man, you stirred the pot, and I don't know, man. I don't know what you're going to do with that one. And I hope you got the big bowl just ready to get all that hate mail that's going to come your way. But Lee, tell us about yourself as we continue to wrap up tonight's show.
Look, in wrapping up, Sam, definitely want to give a shout out. PDRA, great summer shootout presented by Tie Drive, wrapped up this past weekend. And congratulations again to Jim Halsey. It's almost a race for second in Pro Nitrous. In Pro Boost, Kevin Rivenbark won. Congratulations to the Galot Motorsports team with Kevin Rivenbark. Extreme Pro Stock, the monkey is off JR Carr's back. He wins. And in Pro 632, Daryl Stewart. By the way, Sam, on the Monday Morning Racer platforms, Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, my live show, Between the Slicks, we will have Kevin Rivenbark on along with J.R. Carr, the most recent winners in Pro Boost and Extreme Pro Stock in the PDRA at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Probably going to go a little longer that night than just an hour, so make sure come on to the Monday Morning Racer platform and enjoy another live show talking with the winners of the PDRA. Sam, as always, it has been a pleasure to be on with you. And tell us what's going on with you and shut us down.
Well, what's going on with me? We're still in between knowing what guests we have, but we are potentially going to talk to someone from JFR Racing. So if everything goes right, we will have that guest on. If not, we will have a local racer that is going to yak it up about the Dakota Mod Tour that just wrapped up here in the North Dakota area. And that is all under Outlaw Performance ENT. YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. You guys can check out Outlaw Performance ENT. That is my stuff. And if you want to catch up on what Slammin Sam is doing, I have a personal page and my Twitter account under Slammin Sam. You can go over and join those. I show you guys kind of everything that I do and what this crazy life of this media world and racing that I am involved in and what's going on in and out of that. So go over Outlaw Performance ENT. We'll be dropping another podcast here Thursday morning. It will air on all your major podcast forums. But Lee, it's been an honor and a pleasure to wrap up another Competition Plus Power Hour brought to you by, obviously, Competition Plus. Thank you to Bobby Bennett for giving us this opportunity. Thank you, Wes Buck and the Drag Illustrated team for coming on and talking about their new episode, shining the light on Leah and Tony. Thank you to Joey for, like I said, giving us the time while he was on vacation, and Tracy dropping a lot of good news and information as a writer and a senior writer here for Competition Plus. Guys and girls, don't forget, if you have any questions for us, you can email them at powerhourcp@gmail.com. You can listen to all of these podcasts on all your major podcast forums under the Power Hour at Competition Plus. I'm Slammin Sam. That was the Monday Morning Racer, Lee Kraft, and that was Jeff Arend, the Pit Insider. And it's been another great episode of the Power Hour. You guys keep talking drag racing, like and support all of our major sponsors and those that get your racers to the track. If you're going to Tennessee, don't forget, Joey's got a place where you can have an awesome wedding. Till next Tuesday, where we have another great show for you guys. You guys keep living that drag racing, that motorsports life, and keep the pedal to the metal.